Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Arke's Clearing 2020, the Digital Masterclass. The session will last about 35 minutes and there'll be 10 minutes for a Q&A at the end, so use the chat function throughout if you have any questions or queries, and our speakers will answer them at the end. We'll also be asking for some audience participation. So once again, use this function and there may even be a poll. So in terms of what we'll cover in this session, we'll begin by taking a look back at our predictions that we made last year before delving into our approach to clearing this year. What happened on the day before ending by looking forward to next year. The key takeaways for this session will be open, honest and supportive messaging performed best with all segments. Segmented nudge marketing techniques increased, lead to application ratio and a reduction in media spend. So start building your Clearing 2021 audiences now to save on media cost in the summer. Let's start with a little bit about Arke. So we're a digital marketing agency who unravel your data to paint a picture and tell stories to people who love your brand. We are intelligent digital marketing. We inspire curiosity into human behavior to help people better understand people. Through the unification of creativity, data, science, and technology, we see the what, discover the why, and produce the experiences that excite and strategies that work. So how do we do it? Put simply, it's all about stories, intelligence, and audiences. So let me introduce you to your speakers for this morning's masterclass. So my name's Georgie and I'm the Education Account Manager here at Arke. I'm going to be joined by two of our digital experts, affectionately known as Joe S and Joe C. Yes, that's correct, two Joes in the digital team. You can imagine what it's like for me day to day. But Joe Shrimpton is our digital manager and Joe Christopherson, who is one of our analysts here at Arke. Now it's time to start talking about clearing. One important thing to note is there is so much that we can cover about Clearing 2020. This masterclass is designed to give you a little flavour of what happened in the run-up, on the day and in the aftermath. If you want to find out more about anything that we discuss, please do get in touch for a one-to-one session. So before we get started, we'd love to hear what the one thing is that at the beginning of 2020 you wish you'd known about clearing. So leave us a message in the chat and we'll run through at the end. So, Joe C, over to you.
Great, thanks, Georgie. Hi, I'm Joe. So let's start by taking a look back at some of the predictions that we made for Clearing 2020 back in autumn 29, before the pandemic, which we, I'm pretty sure, didn't see coming, but it's still really interesting to look back at what we predicted and whether those predictions came true. So the first thing that we predicted was that the number of direct applicants will continue to keep growing, and they will leave it later in the year to consider their options. Now, this definitely turned out to be true, and I think a big part of that is due to the pandemic, but according to our COVID-19 Gen Z digital behaviours report that we did early in the year, 65% of students were planning to leave their decision-making as late as possible. And this came true partly due to students receiving predicted grades rather than city exams. I think this gave greater uncertainty. And then also a large number of clean places were taken by students who initially received the lower than expected grades, 40% of which were marked down from the predicted grades. And then before the government and Ofqual performed a U-turn, it meant that students left it later, whether by choice or not, but they left it later than ever before, just to consider options and submit their applications. So our second prediction was that personalised messaging will be key. Again, we definitely saw that this came true. In a nod to the pandemic, the adverts that contained reassuring messages performed better. So we saw a 42% increase in CTRs for ads that included messaging around being COVID-19 secure, and a 15.86% increase in CTRs for ads with an urgent call to action, so apply now, apply today, etc. and an 11% increase in CTRs for ads mentioning a start in September. So as the day developed, we also began to see a lot of parents were searching for answers for their children, also a lot of uncertainty amongst them. So we sort of changed messaging in some of our campaigns and added site links to meet these needs, and just to give a more reassuring message and answer their queries for everyone that was searching. So our next prediction, that there will be more clearing places at Russell Group universities. Well, 17 Russell Group universities had places available at clearing this year in comparison to 18 last year. So the number of universities did not go up, so not necessarily true there. However, a high number of vacancies on courses at Russell Group universities did mean that a record-breaking number of students gaining a place at universities were clearing. So on the day, over 4,000 courses were up for grabs, and 17 of the 24 Russell Group universities still had vacancies on courses, according to UCAS. Yeah, so COVID-19 meant a lot of universities faced a lot of serious loss of income, especially a loss of revenue from overseas students, suggested universities even more keen to fill the remaining places with clearing. So around 80,000 students applied through clearing this year, which is up from 73,000 last year. So our next prediction on that note is for international students, you'll need to look outside the EU. We made this prediction in regards to sort of uncertainties with Brexit, and acceptances from within the EU did fall by 15.2%. So that is true. We did see a decrease in that market. But international recruitment overall only increased by 2%, which is not as large of an increase as we were expecting. But I think a lot of that is due to the implications of COVID. So yeah, that one came true a little bit as well. So I don't think all in all we did too bad, considering that we were thrown a bit of a curveball in between making those predictions and results day. But yeah. So at the beginning of lockdown in the UK, we did want to get more information about how this pandemic would affect our clearing 2020. So we began tracking and collecting a lot of data that we could aggregate, analyse, and use to help guide our strategies for 2020. So in June, we collected a lot of this data into actionable insight in the form of a Gen Z behavioural research report, which I mentioned earlier, which examined the digital behaviours of Gen Z during lockdown. And if you don't have a copy of this research, you can just send us an email on hello@arkeagency.com and we'll send you the copy. As we go into a second lockdown, the research is still really, really relevant as it was back in spring. I'm sure a lot of the same sentiments are there. So the findings from this report shaped our strategies for clearing 2020. So we're going to have a quick flick through some of the top level insights from this. And then we'll finish with what we recommended. So some of the trends we saw included that coronavirus-related content on websites being top performing web pages across the education sector. And we also witnessed a phenomenal increase in engagement and decreases in CPCs and CPMs on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. We also advised that it was possible to gain success with Google Search and Google Display as well, with the right strategies over the coming months. So demand from users for university clearing terms was increased. Whilst one of the key trends we saw was digital engagement among Gen Z was up 20% during lockdown. Students engaged more with video content and with traditional social media landscapes, so like Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, with TikTok as well becoming increasingly popular, just rising up there. Next, we saw that 50% of students wanted more information about what to expect in the new academic year. Understandably, concerns about the impact on university life at the forefront of the minds of prospective students. So information about what the college or university was doing to help, exam support and mental health support, which scored highly as well. Basically, they wanted reassurance. They wanted to know what safety precautions there were being put into place, and what their year at university would look like if they attended. So 78% of students were worried about the impact that coronavirus would have on their education. 65% of prospective students delayed making decisions about which university and college they wanted to study at. So again, that sort of uncertainty and worry from a lot of those students. So our recommendations, messaging recommendations for universities off the back of this was messaging around learning experience support, support in general, other information, and student social experiences information. So those are all the things people wanted to read about. And we recommended that at this time, not only to promote the university's USPs, but to have sort of episodic supportive content, tackling applicants' fears head on, and just sort of build that trust and security between you and prospects. We also recommend continuing to focus on producing content across all social media platforms over the spring and summer, as students will be especially engaged in these platforms, and it's just to support your nurture strategy. So to conclude this section, the key takeaways from this research were that the vast majority of students are worried about the future of their education. So deliver content that allays these fears and stay in their minds and support them. Research identified that students were looking for more guidance and informative content from prospective universities. It's an uncertain period of time, and decision-making of students has been significantly affected. And also that digital engagement increased by 20% during lockdown, with OTT video platforms seeing as much as 40% increase. Right, I am going to now pass you over to other Joe, who will explain what we did with all this research.
Joe number one. Cool, so I'm going to take you through a case study for one of our clients this year, but we're drawing on the strategy and the insights of all our clearing clients for this year. So starting off with like a discovery, workshop, and this includes kind of a series of audits as well. So looking at brand and looking at messaging from a digital point of view, we're looking very much at previous campaign data, ad platform data, admissions data, Google Analytics and web analytics data, your ability to capture leads, landing page practices, and just like general site content. This then kind of is followed up by a series of works. We're kind of just getting the infrastructure in place for not only being able to optimize campaigns in real time, but also making sure that you're gathering enough data to have enough learnings to bring into next year for you. And when we're doing this kind of stuff, we're looking at Google Tag Manager, Google Ads, and your other advertising pixels. What's really key, like, is uniforming all your event tracking across platforms. So a single event goes out to every single platform, and you're sending as much user and session information with those events as possible. Other practices such as really strict UTM tagging, this is particularly important on email and social posting and paid social stuff, so you can differentiate between the internal activity and the agency activity as well. Essentially, at the end of this, you want to be getting down so that you can ensure you can recognise all on-site activity, or the paid stuff at least, right down to the advert, the CTA, or actually right down to the keyword as well. And that becomes particularly important on the actual day of clearing, which we'll cover in a bit. Then the next step as well is making sure we're collecting enough clearing like prospects and leads as well, and having lead magnet activity. It could be a clearing guide, for example, but essentially just getting prospects to part with their data and get as many as possible to do that as well. And then once you have those leads inside your CRM, it's then enriching your understanding of them with the intelligence from Google Analytics. So, you know, having a look at the sessions which drove those individuals and actually identifying those individuals as web users, and look at how the sessions and activities and the channels that contributed to that lead. Then we have a look at the historical like admissions data as well, and kind of draw out intelligence from that. That brings us to the next section, which is the audience building. I think it's next slide. Yep. So we start off really by having a look at your historical like admissions data. It's not just student data, it's also applications as well. And we're looking typically in the last like 5 years of applicants, having a look at the kind of geographic, demographic, socioeconomic factors which contribute, statistically speaking, to an enrolled student. And then we're taking your clearing leads and we're applying that, that intelligence to them and developing essentially kind of high priority and low priority lists from those leads. And this is not a case of excluding individuals. There always needs to be kind of a degree of holistic oversight. These methods that we're using is statistical modeling by regression. It needs to be kind of like based in what you know and the reality of trends that you've seen in the past. But essentially, you're taking these understandings of your leads, you're building out those audiences in your advertising platforms, but then you're also classifying like your web users by the same definitions, and then you're pushing those out as well to your various marketing platforms. So like in this particular instance, prior to the day of clearing, we had about 14,000 like direct marketing prospects accessible to us in Google Ads, and about 22,000 across social advertising, specifically the Facebook platform, so Instagram, Facebook, elsewhere. From these definitions, then you're actually then building lookalike and similar audiences off the back of them, and these audiences they become the key to kind of to reaching new individuals that look like these existing audiences. That then takes us to the next section, really, which is media. And so this is a fairly big topic, but I'm going to try and keep it as top line as possible. Essentially, in most cases, the media, we started spending in April for clearing activity, all the way through to the day of clearing, like and then beyond for certain tactics. In particular, in this time frame, we're going like breadth and reach. We're keeping like frequency low. You don't want to swamp, really important. The real purpose of this time though, say from, like say let's start like in April, but you could start it in May, perhaps even June if you have the budget. Really just testing. We're testing the media tactics, but really we're testing the audiences, we're testing the lookalike audiences, looking for low CPCs, high CTRs, and good on-site behavior. Low bounce rate, that sort of thing. And that's fairly easy to do. It's quite it's metric heavy. What's not so easy is measuring the effect of the messaging. In most cases, the messaging kind of led on from our Gen Z kind of like behavioural research report that fed into the creative concepts, and the messaging itself was quite kind of safety and reassurance focused. But it definitely depends on the audience as well. Like certain messages gel with certain audiences, and other ones definitely don't. So in this time period, again, pre-day of clearing, in terms of the platforms we're looking at, obviously Google search is the main one, Google display, YouTube, that was fairly, it was new this year. I don't think we used it as much as we did last year, mainly because we saw kind of a 20% increase in engagement, but actually a reduction in CPCs by about 40%. YouTube's obviously quite a premium video platform. So, you know, taking advantage of that 40% in the run up to clearing definitely helped keep CPCs low. And then the last two, Instagram and programmatic display as well, especially for kind of key inventory buys around specific subjects that we can access, like just with Google Ads. Throughout this period as well, if you're running from April all the way until August, in most cases we spent somewhere between 10 and 15k during that period, as an indicator of kind of how much you spend if you are tackling all these different platforms and getting out the relevant learnings from those. Just briefly on the day of clearing then. So it's probably fairly like familiar, you guys. Brand and priority subject is very much the focus of the campaigns. Search itself is king, but the actual all the campaigns that you have running on the day of clearing, I think the latest that we started them was early June. And that means that these campaigns, they build up weeks and weeks of mature learnings. The ones that are relevant, have established and refined audiences, but obviously you have them on a reduced budget, ready to rank up for the day of clearing. And as a day off clearing, you have both new audience tactics, account remarketing, Google search, the big one obviously, but there was social as well. And you just got to be focused on real-time manual optimization at the keyword level for search. And in terms of just like a general approach, you have to be fairly dynamic with budgeting. You have to be flexible with the way you can take budget, perhaps some social, or switch things between departments, perhaps take stuff like from departments, put it on brand, like if need be. And it's important as well to have contingency pots. It's really easy to quickly overspend. There was one client this year where we were kind of sat there at about 9:30, 10 o'clock. It looked like we were struggling to spend over the kind of 2,000 mark, and we're thinking this seems pretty slow. And then the platform refreshed, and we'd spend about £16,000 in the space of 2.5 hours. So in terms of section, we will go obviously like more into the actually what happened on the day of clearing, but just in this section, this bit, I know I've been talking at you for a fair few minutes, but the kind of 4 takeaways are kind of, you have to make sure you have the infrastructure in place. You have to make sure that you have web analytics in place, not just to feed like your campaigns in real time and the data that you need to optimize audiences and to optimize the campaigns themselves and the bidding strategy, but also that you have infrastructure in place so that going forward next year, you have enough historical data and rich historical data of that. Number 2 is just begin building your audiences as soon as possible and expand these out into lookalike audiences and refine those as quickly as you can, and begin your campaigns early so that they're optimized in time for the day of clearing. And then on the day itself, just be as flexible as you can and have contingency pots, which is really important. I'm going to now push back over to the other Joe. I'm just going to show you some of the results that we achieved with the above approach.
Hello again. Yeah, I'm just going to take you through some of the stats, which we all know are the best part. This year's clearing buzzwords were support and reassurance. So campaigns that perform the best of engagement and conversion alluded to these terms. So as we've seen before, they include words like secure and safe. It led to a 55% reduction in media spend and a 33% increase in lead to application ratio year on year. Phone calls were also up 164% year on year, and in pre-clearing and day of clearing, we achieved an overall cost per inquiry of £46.08 and cost per offer of £107.56. As we alluded to previously, the average CTR for ads that include a message around COVID-19 secure versus those that didn't was 42% higher, which was a really, really big increase. This was 21.36% higher in those aged over 45, so the parents. We ranked extremely highly amongst all our competitors with a rank of 1.39 for share of impressions and 3.07 for top of page position rate. We generated nearly 1,000% more inquiries while actually reducing CPCs compared to 2019 by 5%. So our audience quality metrics as well, such as click to conversion rate, were extremely strong. We're really happy with those, and it indicated a highly engaged search audience over competitors. So for Facebook subject-specific campaigns, we spent 3 times more than in 2019, but reduced the cost of media by 65% and generated over 1,000% more clicks compared to last year. We're really happy with that. So we'll touch on this a little bit more in detail in the end, but we're going to be offering free digital measurement frameworks for attendees of this masterclass. It'll be tailored to your institution and region using our campaign data and data from Google and Facebook, so you can plan for the future and see what normal looks like. But we'll touch on that in the end. Now, I've run you through some of the key metrics. Joe Shrimp is going to say, what trends did we see develop throughout the day? So back over to him.
Okay, so on the day of clearing, as I say, search was very much core focus, as it always is. Social campaigns, we had them running for months, but we had all the remarketing in place. We're confident they didn't need kind of much attention on the day itself. We turn the budgets up, let them do their thing. But the search is very much the focus on the day itself. So we saw the highest peak of clicks and certainly spend between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. on the day. This is fairly typical of most years. I've done 3 clearings now, and this is pretty much always the way. The social, as I was saying, is in terms of being like flexible with the budgets. The social actually had quite a lot of budget assigned to it, and it just wasn't spending it. So we actually took some off social and put it onto search, and especially like towards the afternoon, as we saw like CPCs rising, as you just get a complete first of all stagnation of content because you're hitting the audiences so hard, but also a lot of rising competition as well. We saw like a late peak in the day between 3 and 5 p.m. At this point, this is often the time where other institutions start to like run out of money, but we delved into our contingency pots and we upped the bids as well. So slightly higher CPCs, but making sure that we're still getting a nice lot of traffic kind of throughout the day. In terms of kind of just then little sound bites and stats. So 31% of searches of the day were actually carried out by parents, and our parent information site link extension was the most popular of any that we had on the day. This may also explain increasing visits of desktops, increasing visits from desktop devices. It was actually just over 50%, 50.4% this year versus 38% last year. The top performing ads and campaigns included messaging around safety, COVID-19 secure USPs, and on average these achieved a 42% high CTR, so quite significant there. The CTR dropped in the mid-afternoon and CPCs increased, but actually our remarketing tactics managed to maintain consistent performance. We saw kind of CPCs across all of our tactics range from £1.41 to £5.87, and our remarketing search tactics particularly, we managed to get broad match terms like university, undergraduate and degree from where they were at anywhere from kind of £7 to £10 and beyond to about £3, which is really, really good. And that's a CPC that at 8:30 in the morning we're fully prepared to spend. That's all in terms of the day of. Georgie will, well, I'll pass over to Georgie now.
Thank you, Joe. So I hope we haven't overwhelmed you with too many stats. So we're just going to pop up a poll momentarily where we're going to ask you what your biggest challenge in clearing 2020 was. And then there's another question about whether you saw a change in frequency and timings of applications. We'll reveal the results at the end. So I'll just let that pop up now. Okay, thank you, everybody. Joe, S, back to you.
I think I actually covered everything like in this next section. I've condensed it down, sorry. I think we should go on to page 29. Yeah. Yeah, I think just elaborating on top of what we said previously then. So in terms of key takeaways from the day, so the supportive and reassuring messaging, especially this time, was definitely an absolute must. We saw that like in the CTI, also in the CPCs as well. Parents were definitely kind of key contenders as well. In hindsight, perhaps it's worth exploring other search engines that parents might use, like Bing, for example. That's definitely something that we kind of thought of at the time and had some conversations about. And yeah, in terms of clearing for 2021, just start as early as possible.
So back to me. So thanks, Joe. In this section, we're going to run you through some top level recommendations to help you succeed in clearing 2021. Hopefully coronavirus has gone by then. We can almost pray. So number one, adopt an always on approach from now to ensure the algorithms have enough data to maximize your results. It's also powerful for building awareness of your institution throughout the year and start warming up potential students to your brand long before results day. Start building your audiences now. Students are searching for 2021 entries and top of the funnel leads could be being lost if you're not already marketing to them. Be agile to remove and change budgets to fit best performing campaigns. So the best way to get the most out of your advertising budget is to adjust your campaigns against real-time recruitment statistics. This way you can boost investment and applications for programs that require additional support. Using call tracking is one way to ensure an agile approach. It's a great tool for seeing call volume against each advertising and marketing channel in real time. It enables you to see which of your communications is generating the most calls and allows you to optimize accordingly. Without this information, you're blind to what's working. Relevant copy. This isn't rocket science by any means. Just ensure that your advert copy is highly relevant to the terms that your audience are going to be searching for. As we've shown, we found this year that supportive and reassuring messages performed highly. In a COVID-19 world, students were looking for information and advice, and we can expect this to continue next year. It can be tempting to get caught up in the mania of clearing with high competition for potential students, but it's not all about reaching a new audience. In fact, it's equally important not to forget about those who have already applied to you or those who inquired earlier in the year. And naturally, it's a good use of resources to invest in paid advertising and then drive your audience to a landing page that isn't optimized. For maximum conversion and to provide the best user experience, make sure your landing page is highly engaging, relevant to both your advert copy and your target search terms, mobile optimized, which is a big one, mobile optimization. I'm looking at both of the Joes. Clear on just one call to action as well, another really key one. So how can you talk about your USPs in a COVID world? What makes sense? What makes you stand out, and what are you doing differently? It's well known that lots of institutions are similar and often have comparable offerings for potential students. With the industry's tendency to emulate one another, it's more important than ever to really find your niche. You've all got one. Building up a call list of potential clearing students throughout the earlier summer months will put you in great stead come results day. This will allow internal teams to proactively contact leads rather than solely being reliant on inbound inquiries. For this reason, as well as to build awareness, your advertising is just as important in the lead up to results day as on the day of itself. In an ideal world, we'd advise kicking off your clearing campaign as early as January. So now some predictions for 2021 from Joe Christo. So over to you.
Hello. Yeah, thanks, Georgie. We've pulled together some predictions, but we'd also love to hear what you guys think would happen. So again, just leave a message in the chat and we can read them out at the end, any predictions that you have. So first of all, again, supportive messaging will be key. I don't think that it will all be back to normal next year. So I think just assuring people that they're still getting the university experience they want and they're getting all the support and advice that they can. It's important to consider that these students who were year 12s during lockdown, they've had a unique educational experience. It will impact their exams, their grades, their approach to studying at uni. So just be aware of that. And again, messaging about support and some nudge marketing techniques. Yeah, that will win in 2021. Students are confused, they need advice, and they will go to the sources that they trust over the next 10 months. So make sure that that's you, basically, and build that relationship. So our next prediction is about TikTok. It's not going anywhere. It's a really large platform for people to engage in content, and this is something that you guys, it's really important to have a presence on there. We suggest things like student takeovers that can be really popular, and it can be replicated on other things like Instagram Reels, which is just starting. So we just encourage to share like real, true experiences and just build that brand trust and loyalty. And also explore paid advertising on the platform, which we recently ran a TikTok masterclass for education institutions. And we are running another session of that on the 18th of November because a lot of people wanted to hear about it. So drop us an email again if you'd like to attend. Right, our next prediction is we'll have more Russell Group universities will be taking part in clearing than ever. Yes, I know we said that last year, but with the mounting financial pressures facing universities at the moment, we do expect more Russell Group universities to take part in clearing to boost their admission numbers. The next one is health-related subjects will be more popular than before. We're seeing quite a lot of a really big increase in enrollments in these kind of areas, and I think with well, we say every time, but because of the pandemic, I think these ones will definitely get paid more attention. And again, clearing will be bigger than ever. So more uncertainty around the impact of COVID to grades and university experience. And clearing 2021, I think, will be bigger and more important than ever, as well as a lot of students not going to university this year, wanting to go next year. So make sure that you're prepared. And lastly, voice search, virtual assistants will continue to grow. We are seeing that make sure your sort of keywords sort of match that kind of that sort of search terms that happen from this voice search. Right, then this is a really interesting slide. Just take it in. It's just some stats from the student room. Basically, your prospective students out there communicating and searching for content in a lot of these forum-based websites. So get in front of them now. Right. So the key takeaways from this section are adopt an always-on approach. Again, just make sure that you're always visible and get those audiences now. Start building your audiences now, yeah. And do personalized messaging should form the central part of your content strategies over the next 12 months. Cool, so back to you, Georgie.
Thank you, Joe. So to summarize, the three key takeaways from this session are: open, honest, and supportive messaging performed best with all segments. Segmented nudge marketing techniques increased lead to application ratio and a reduction in media spend. And start building your clearing 2021 audiences now to save on media cost in the summer. So now it's time for that exclusive offer. As we mentioned earlier, we're offering free 2021 clearing digital measurement frameworks for attendees of this masterclass. There's a nice image of you all enjoying the framework there, just on the side. You can visualize just all together again and not over a Zoom. A collaboration from Arke's biddable media and data science departments. The framework will include benchmark CPMs, CPCs and CTRs for your major search and social ad platforms customized to your institution, organizational or departmental level KPI and digital metric matching and tracking, projected KPI and metric growth versus different investment scenarios. The measurement framework will be based on aggregated platform data from Facebook and Google and campaign data. So keep an eye on your email inbox for more information. So last but not least, a huge thank you for attending our Clearing Digital Masterclass. We hope you found it useful and insightful, and it's brightened your second lockdown day. And don't forget about our offer, and if you want to find out more, drop us an email at hello@arkagency.com or call us on 01273 041 111. Now, I think we have, let's go over to some questions. I know that we've got the poll and the Q&A. So let's have a look at the Q&A. So, any good examples of unis who use TikTok? So
we did a TikTok, like a masterclass similar to this a couple of months, but no, a few weeks back, wasn't it? About a month ago. And we mentioned University of Kent, University of York, who do stuff, organically speaking anyway. Also, it's worth looking at a lot of sixth form colleges. They're picking it up quite a lot. We've got a number of other education institutions that actually have like fairly decent presence on TikTok.
Yes, we do. Case study we can send over as well. And another one, did engagement metrics, CTRs, etc., change much this year versus previous years?
It was more expensive for sure. CTRs is generally an indication of like quality. Like CTRs, I don't think changed drastically. It was more expensive to like get to a certain CTR threshold, if that makes sense. But once you were there, the only variable really was price. I hope that answers the question. In terms of other metrics, though, I'm trying to think CTRs. CPM on the run up to clearing, so for display tactics, was actually quite a fair bit cheaper. But clicks, say, like went fairly expensive, at least on the mainstream channels. The advantage of using something like programmatic display is you are tapping into like niche inventories. So in terms of display tactics there, they yielded fairly cheap CPCs. Yeah.
And I just want to go over to the poll. We have one here, which is really interesting. There's a couple of questions. Can you say which institution these stats can be attributed to?
No, we're not at liberty to say that.
No, we're not at liberty to say that, unfortunately. And then the next one is it one or an amalgamation for a few? And then how did you get around the suppression, rejection of ads containing COVID-specific messaging if this performed best for you?
Sorry, in terms of the messaging, you can answer that one, Joe, but we didn't use COVID-specific terms like COVID, coronavirus, pandemic. We used terms such as secure learning or safely delivering learning, things that sort of alluded to how that was, or, you know, with safety measures in place without actually saying COVID or corona.
Yeah, and things that relate, all indicative of having like a lot of space. Obviously, it's easier for campus universities and it is city universities, but you know, talking about that, simply how much space there is on the campus actually did fairly well. So most of the stats were just from that one but the overall trends, they were from like an amalgamation of our clearing clients. The approach was pretty much uniform. For the majority of clients who we took for clearing this year, they're already incumbent clients. So we've got most of that stuff, got pretty much all that stuff set up already. There was only one this year, I think, that we were onboarding for the first time. Overall, we ran 76 search tactics in the day of clearing. So perhaps if you kind of do the math in relation to how many you guys run, that might give you an idea of how many.
Thank you, Joe. Sorry, I'm just very aware of time. So if we go on to the poll, super interesting. And I think our biggest challenge as well was the uncertainty of student grades, which has won the first question. What was your biggest challenge in clearing? By a good 50%, with a follow-on from COVID-19 itself, different messaging to normal and smaller budgets, which is super interesting. And then again, did you notice a change in the frequency and timing of applications this year? Both of them got 50%. So super interesting as well. But yeah, well, thank you so much.
Everyone. There's one more question. There's one more at the bottom.
Oh, sorry.
Did you see how much activity post A-level results day? And yeah, we did. We had a few tactics left over that still have budget, and we shuffled some budget around and kept the brand stuff going, particularly, and some key subjects. And we ran those tactics all the way into the first week of September, and they actually got really expensive. Like in the week after clearing, it was really odd. We weren't expecting that. We were expecting the prices to actually come right down, but it seems like there were a lot of universities in the space that that were doing the same. The Montfort, for example, seemed to spend heavily throughout the whole thing. There compared to the entire time across our entire client base. But yeah, in answer to that, yeah, we ran most activity at least until the end of the month. Some of the tactics into the first week of September. Thanks, Georgie.
Thank you, Joe, and apologies for missing that one at the end. But thank you everyone for attending today. We hope you found it really useful. And as I say, please do get in touch for our offer, or if you have any further questions on anything that we've spoken about today. Thank you very much and have a pleasant second lockdown.